So then, and what happens when one does all that to get bhakti? An insignificant byproduct of the bhakti. Look what happened to Ambarish Maharaj. With Ambarish Maharaj, he became so powerful that the Sudarshan Chakra chased his enemy all over the universe for 1 year. He was also so powerful that he could stop the Sudarshan Chakra from killing Durvasa Muni. He was also so powerful that his power made him so humble that he was blaming himself that Durvasa Muni was in so much trouble. He thought it was because of him that Durvasa Muni was suffering so much. And he became so powerful that in his repentance and blaming himself, he fasted for 1 year. He didn't even have to eat for 1 year. These are all insignificant byproducts of his bhakti, pure bhakti. And the fortitude and practice of bhakti, even when there's obstacles, the ultimate result of that is to be an associate of the greatest personality in existence who practices that to the maximum high degree. Who is that? Who's the greatest personality in existence? Srimati Radhika, thank you. She's even greater than Krishna. She's the better half of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, when she sees Krishna up on Govardhan Hill, she wants to get a really good view, the best view. It happens that that best view is where there are very hot sunstones, sharp as arrows, and hot as the sun. But that so-called obstacle affords her the best view. So she jumps over the heads of the obstacles by standing on that. But because she's doing her bhakti, she doesn't feel the obstacle. Rather, the obstacle becomes a help. Or, as I mentioned, perhaps I mentioned it here, that I was once on Brajmandal Parikrama with Srila Gurudev back in the 90s. And I told him that Gurudev was supposed to be thinking about the pastimes of Krishna out here, but all I'm thinking of is how my feet hurt. So what to do? Because I'm walking barefoot on these hot, sharp stones and, what do you call those? Like
Stones.
Well, like the grass when it's very sharp. Sharp, dry blades of grass. What? Spiky kind of grasses and hot sand. And he said, if you keep doing this, then one day you'll feel that that land is just like soft, cool rubber or butter. In other words, Krishna will accept you in bhakti for all the suffering that you're doing. And then everything's an enjoyment. Then 4, following the limbs of bhakti, such as hearing and chanting, and giving up one's material sense enjoyment for the pleasure of Krishna. Another German story. We were at the airport in Germany several years ago, and Gurudev was telling one of his disciples, lady disciples, was sitting next to him on the seats in the lobby. So he took her hair and pulled on one of her hairs. And he said, you cannot take one hair with you to your next body. Don't be attached to all your jewelry and fancy this and that. You can't take one hair with you. In other words, giving up sense enjoyment and simultaneously engaging in hearing and chanting. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, Prabhupada explains in the purport in the 7th canto that he had no interest to play with anything. Parikshit Maharaj had no interest, even as a little child, to play with anything. He only wanted to worship the deity. And 5, giving up illicit connection with women, the association of those who are overly attached to women, the association of Mayavadis, atheists, and pseudo-religionists. Now this can be a little confusing when we already have lack of faith and enthusiasm for preaching. Well, why should I go out and preach? Because then I'll be associating with all these materialists and I'll get contaminated. This does not apply to preaching. Preaching means giving my association and the association of my Gurudev and Guru Parampara to others. When it's in relation to sense gratification, then it's taking the association of those kind of people. So there's a big difference. Especially the next verse can be more confusing if we don't have the example and so many instructions of Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev in that regard, which we'll come to. Like, it says, this is the do's. And in the next verse, it's the do's. The first verse was do's and don'ts, like do engage your tongue in this way, don't engage your tongue in that way, the urges, avoid the urges, what to avoid, what to not succumb to, not surrender to the urges of the 6 senses, of the 6 pushings. And then the second verse of yesterday is totally what not to do. What are some of the things? Don't over-collect, don't overeat, don't be fanatic, don't over-endeavor for mundane things, meaning don't endeavor for anything that's outside of bhakti. Don't what? Don't follow the rules and regulations fanatically, without consideration, like the pure devotee comes in and you say, I can't talk to you now, I'm busy finishing my round, which I'm not even paying any attention to anyway. And, like that. They're the don'ts. And these 2 verses, 3 and 4, are the do's. So, we'll come to the next verse and I guess we'll come to it tomorrow. But just to let you know that it can be very, very confusing, like it says, okay, it's easy to understand, don't take food from materialists. And then the other half of that, it's because it's the do verse. Take the remnants of the foods from devotees, from pure devotees, and take prasadam from devotees that they're distributing. And give prasadam to devotees. And don't give prasadam to non-devotees, because you can develop affectionate attachment for them. That's what the verse says, or the commentary. So that can be very confusing if we don't have the millions of instructions from Gurudev and Prabhupada. Like, for example, in Mathura, in Gurudev's Mutt in Mathura, they feed like 20,000 people for Janmashtami, and the next day Nandotsava. Nandotsava is same day as Prabhupada's appearance day. It's the morning after Krishna was born. Krishna was born in the midnight, and then that next morning, Nanda Maharaj held a big festival and distributed prasadam to everybody. So in the Mathura Mutt, they distributed like 20,000 plates of prasadam, and every day the devotees are outside the Mutt distributing prasadam to passers-by. So what does it mean that don't give prasadam to non-devotees? Because it creates affectionate attachment. It means in the venue or in the place of engaging with them and taking their association, don't do it. That is, well, I'll give them prasadam so I can engage in all kinds of sense gratification and watch TV with my parents, because I'm also giving them prasadam. By doing that, I have more attachment with them. But on the other hand, there was a Mayavadi who came to the temple at the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and the devotees refused to give him prasadam. So when Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur heard about that, he became very angry, and he made sure he was very properly treated with nice prasadam. And then that Mayavadi turned, and he became very favorable to the devotees and went towards bhakti. So with affection, to give anybody prasadam, but not simultaneously take their association, is favorable for bhakti. But we'll discuss more of those subtleties tomorrow. And the sixth, number 6, is adopting the good behavior and character of pure devotees according to the ashram that you are in, following the ashram that they are in. For example, if one is not married, then he wants to follow the good behavior of Raghunath Das Goswami. If he's married, then he wants to follow either the behavior and character of Maharaj Yudhisthira, or who had great wealth, beautiful wife, and beautiful, powerful children, and were engaging with them, and at the same time was a pure devotee, and so was his family. So I want to follow him. In fact, Maharaj Yudhisthira told Krishna before he was married, Krishna, I want you to do me a favor. Sure, what? Because they're cousins. He said, I want a good wife, a beautiful wife, well qualified. I want powerful sons, beautiful sons, and great wealth. Why? Why do you want all that? Because I want to show people that it's not that if you come to bhakti, you'll become a pauper. So I want to draw people to bhakti by showing the example that you can still be rich and still be in the midst of a lap of luxury and still be a devotee. So Krishna granted his wish. And if you're renounced, then following Gangamata Goswamini, you all know the story of Gangamata Goswamini? She was a princess, and she loved Krishna since her childhood. And she never wanted to marry anybody. So as soon as she became a teenager and she heard her father wanted to... Am I speaking too fast?
No.
Because you're German by first time. Okay, if I'm going too fast, anybody can raise their hand and stop me. So as soon as she heard that her father was arranging her marriage, she decided to leave home and walk to Vrindavan. So when her father found out, he said, well, at least let me give you a conveyance to go to Vrindavan. He appreciated her determination. So she got to Vrindavan, was looking for a good guru, found one named Haridas, who was in the line of Srila Rupa Goswami, and begged him to accept her for initiation. He said, well, I'm not going to give you any home, I'm not going to give you any prasadam, you're going to have to organize all that yourself. But I'll teach you how to do bhajan. So she lived by doing madhukari, just begging at different people's houses. And she lived in some old hut, something very simple. And then he was very pleased with her. And then he gave her hand into the hand of one older 50-year-old, very nice Vaishnavi to protect her from elements like men and things like that. So she was under her care,